good to see you. You have just seen quick glimpses of 3 collages I made as the world continues to burn. But you did not see 2 other collages I did, including my favorite, as part of this session of Doom-Collaging. And yes, I made up that term. And yes, you can use it too. Only art will get us through. In the end, my favorite of the 5 collages I made in this session is the only one that isn't really political at all. And that doesn't really surprise me, because I guess what I'm ultimately trying to do here is to fill my life with something that can bring me joy in the face of all this hateful chaos. You'll see my favorite one later, and I'll talk about what I like and don't like about each of these compositions. And hopefully I'll have some tips or insights for you along the way that should be relevant either for artists or graphic designers, really anybody who makes visual compositions. But before we get to the actual collaging bit, we have to source our imagery. So going into this, I aimed to make collages about doom and gloom, and I thought it could be interesting though to attempt that using source material that isn't always centered on news or politics. And I had these 3 Wired magazines sitting around. So you've seen me sort of cut out some like watches and devices and things. I was thinking that I could find ways to use that stuff. And in general, as I'm looking through this, you know, I guess I'm really hunting for one of 2 things, right? Either something that I thought might work for the theme, or just design elements like those red blocks here. You know, just interesting blocks of color, sort of this blue here. Yeah, just looking for things that I think can be useful in piecing together an interesting composition, but also hopefully some elements that can make sense in a kind of political collage context. I'm not usually someone who enjoys doing super topical work, and I'm particularly hesitant to make anything that features like Trump or Musk or I know these people. But I kind of wanted to try to push myself to do that. I just can't really imagine liking a piece of art that features those faces. So you'll see later on I kind of wrestle with that a bit. But here I am trying to put together the first little composition. I used that big blue piece on the right here. I thought when I found that in the magazine that it was going to be like this awesome part I could really use, because it has this like kind of ominous looking tripod light that's set up somewhere outside in this kind of hazy blue sci-fi light, you know. In the end, I think it has very low impact here, and I really kind of struggled to make this composition work. I thought this thing I'm gluing on here might help. It's sort of some people in front of a computer, a set of computer screens or something. The whole thing was feeling a little bit like OK Computer by Radiohead, you know, a little bit of that kind of alienation vibe, I guess. And that vertical white strip there, and then the thing I'm just gluing on here, those were from a layout in the magazine that I just thought there was like a cool texture that I could use. It's a little sort of Matrix-like, but more analog. But yeah, I kind of decided to leave it there. It wasn't really working that well for me. This combination here, I thought, this could be something. I like this torso where I can like replace the head with something. But I didn't really figure like what would it mean to have like that turntable coming out of a torso. I didn't think it meant anything. So then I said, well, what about this kind of weird gold abstract shape here? That in a way means even less, you know, but somehow the lack of specificity of it, I thought, actually helped. And you know, it is maybe implying something about like oligarchs or just wealth and power. And here I'm just trying to figure out how to fit it into the kind of collar opening. And I use this pen to draw like a little mark for myself to be able to line it up. because I used 2 pieces just to get a little bit of layering and to make it wide enough as well. But I like that it's also just 2 pieces on top of each other a little bit. I'm using this Japanese glue stick, by the way, that I found on Amazon, which is run by another oligarch, but what are you gonna do? But I was kind of excited about this glue stick because if you saw, I did a video a while back where I did some other collage stuff, and for those I used I think it's called a Uhu stick, if I remember right. It was recommended a lot on like forums and places where people were talking about collage. But I found that it wasn't very strong. But this Japanese one, I noticed that it says PVA on it. And you know, PVA is this glue that is usually in more liquid form, and that's used for like, I think maybe like book binding and stuff, but certainly for like paper work. And it's very strong. And archival and so on. And so I thought like, oh, a glue stick that has PVA, that seemed perfect. Yeah, I found this works pretty well. So here I'm using other like design elements. Again, I'm feeling a little lost as I'm putting this stuff together. I got a couple of these like speaker shapes that I was kind of auditioning there. It didn't really work. I wanted to use these watch things. I thought when I cut those out that those would be easy to kind of use to maybe denote like a time crunch, you know, clock is ticking. There's some kind of heaviness to it. But I actually found that as I was trying to make collages with it, it was kind of difficult. Difficult to make it have meaning, I guess is what I'm saying. Here I did use an image of Musk, but I couldn't stand looking at it, so I put him upside down. And then it's like he dropped the globe that I'm putting down here. It's a little globe illustration. I like this kind of O or 0, but I couldn't make it work. And here I'm just making sure to label the picture of Elon Musk so that it's clear that this is not an endorsement. And I think it's important in this time of labels, right? To make sure that things are properly labeled. Then I had these arrows, but it was a little wide, so I tried to trim it down. And I think in the end, I had to trim it down that narrow to make it work in the composition, but it lost a little bit of its arrowness, a little bit of its power. And so in the end, I think what I'm doing with color here is working reasonably well, but it's just like a little bit of a chaotic mess. I think that privacy nightmare text helped it. Again, not so much in terms of content maybe, but compositionally I think it helped. And then I came up with this thing where I was able to wrap this piece around the paper, and that's something I've never done before, and I thought that was a cool little element. I think I want to do that more. And then I went back to this piece again, tried to liven up this dead space that was introduced by the image I was so excited to use in the beginning. The only thing I like is that piece I put up there, that little white corner that's sort of echoing the other vertical white shape. I think that works okay, but everything else, I don't know, I couldn't really get anything going. I don't know if it's that maybe it's too many things at like 90-degree angles maybe. It's a little bit regimented, a little rigid. Put some pills in there. Again, a little sort of OK computer, existential malaise. Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's like terrible looking, but yeah, again, maybe that one is too horizontal. Maybe it's like just too much on a grid in a way. There's something just feels a little forced about the whole thing. But, you try things, and some of them are more successful than others. This one, I think, ends up working better. I liked having that strong red at the bottom. I struggled a bit here with there's sort of these wrinkles in the paper. It's very thin paper, wired these days. This shape I thought was really cool. I forget what that thing is. It might be like a speaker or something. It's some sort of weird technical device. I was convinced I'd be able to use those mountains that I put down, and I just could never find the way. But this I thought looked really cool. This was a building. I've turned it like 90 degrees, so those lamps are really pointing down to a sidewalk, but by making them sort of feel more horizontal like that, it becomes more of a landscape thing that I thought worked well. And then I really liked how the vertical in this piece is parallel to the edge of the paper, but the little blue sliver is not, so that creates some nice tension toward the right edge of the image there. And then I like to pick up that blue and kind of place it in other parts of the composition. So you can see I'm kind of auditioning different placements, and I went for that lower left corner, and then was looking to put another piece up in the top right. And this idea of having a large field of color and then picking it up in other areas is something I kind of picked up from this painter named Joe Soren way back in college. I used to study his work a bit. And then this hand was another very evocative image. I tried to place Trump in it, and you know, I think it kind of looks interesting, but I'm not so sure that it has a very clear meaning again. But anyway, I soldier on. In a way, also soldier on, now that I think about it. I like what I did with the layered reds at the bottom there, and then again, I use smaller pieces to pick up the color in other areas. And I think that part of this is reasonably successful. And I really like this piece that I just put down there in the top left. And what I like about it is that the hard edge of where the red ends is sitting on top of the less hard edge of the black underneath it. So it's kind of this interesting layering. And there you have it. So here's a look at all of the pieces together. Like I said, I think some of these are definitely more successful than others, but the real success here is in the fact of the making. I spent some time making art instead of letting Doom take over completely. In the face of so much destruction, this felt like a tiny piece of creation. It's not likely to help the world, but it helped me. Thank you so much for coming along. I hope it inspired you to go make some of your own art. Please like the video and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I hope to see you back here soon.